And here we are. It's Thursday, almost the end of the week. And every day this week, we've been working on preparing you for a buyer's interview, interviewing buyer's agents. Each day, we've tackled a new question. Like on Monday, we talked about how will you help me establish the worth of the home? Today's question is very similar. Tuesday was how are you compensated? And will I be responsible for any of it? We kind of fell on our faces a little bit, but got better with that one. Yesterday, what risks and mistakes do buyers make? How will you help me avoid them? And today is going to be how will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure I don't overpay? So we have Urbana White in the house today, Louise, and our people lining up like crazy to play.
They are, Denny. They are on this beautiful red day. Ellie and Darlene have stepped up, and we're going to add some more people to the chat until we do. Ellie and Don will be first, and you'll let us know when you're ready to go, Denny.
We're ready to go.
Hey, Ellie, one question I have
Yes,
for you
Don.
is how will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure I don't overpay?
All right. Help me understand what the best deal means to you, Don.
Oh, well, I don't mean to be a bad guy, but I want to make sure I didn't leave any money on the table and kind of squeeze the seller out of as much as I can squeeze.
So the best deal is only related to the price that you're gonna pay. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Is there anything else I should be
Other than
looking
that,
at?
is something else that's important to you in a deal?
No, I just want to make sure I get the best price. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and when you say you don't want to overpay, what's your limit there? What's your you have like a price in mind, like a certain percentage?
Well, I want to be fair, but I just don't want to move in later and go, damn it, I left money on the table. How do you protect me from that?
Okay.
What's your
That's a great
strategy?
question, Dan. Yes, I mean, of course, the strategy here, first of all, and most, is to present you all the data that's available. And usually, most of the data is based on what has been sold. And that's not that relevant because market has changes all the time and so forth. But what it could be relevant for you to understand if you overpay something are the pendings, because although we don't know the exactly
Time.
numbers that
You started out really good. Now that got to be a little lengthy. I just cut you off because it's about a minute 45, but I want to give you an Uncle Bump. Ellie,
Yep.
way to go first.
Mhm.
Generally, Robert's taking all the flack going first. However,
Mhm.
you did
Thank you.
something extremely well at the beginning. Who would like to put in the chat or at least pipe up? And I want to make sure you're listening. What did she do well in that?
I think she said, "What does the best deal look like to you?"
Right. Remember a week or two ago, we started circling, diagramming sentences, defining terms. And so part of getting clarity is what do you mean by best deal? And then I thought, okay, well, there's another word there you might want to get a little clarity on. And she kind of went back to it, and she got a little bit tangled up here and talked about overpay. So good job, Ellie. You're learning. Get
Thank you.
clarity on that. That's all I'll say right now. We'll uncover a little bit more, but this is there's a unique. It's not really unique. There's something in this conversation here that I want you to start to pick up, and if you don't, we'll let you know. But it will help you in almost every conversation you have. Next,
Okay, next is Darlene and me. Darlene, how
Oh,
will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure I don't overpay?
well, thank you, Louise. I would like to first know what do you consider a best deal? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. I want to know that I didn't pay more than the property is worth.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things that you need to consider is that we're looking at this home is hopefully positioned correctly, and then we're looking at the market trends. So, you say overpay. Well, of course, I'm going to negotiate the best price for you, but how much would you consider overpay? Could you define that for me?
Sure. If 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 I get locked in at a price and then the appraisal comes in lower, I feel like I would have overpaid.
Well, if the appraisal comes in lower, then or you're if you are locked in, it's possible that we may
Time.
find
Darlene, I know you said you're nervous at the beginning. You did so much better there today. In
okay.
spite of the butterflies flying, way to get them in formation. Way to ask the first question about clarity and definition of best deal. Now, what's interesting, gang, is this is one of the benefits of listening. When you ask, and it's here, you can see it behind me, best deal, and make sure I don't overpay. What does best deal mean? Okay, she asked the question. And then the potential buyer breaks the rules by giving you a sentence with another word that might need to be defined.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just don't want to pay more than the property's worth. Oh,
Who determines that?
yeah. What worth? What? Yeah. And by the way, and here's a little secret. A little bit came out in that, but how will one know if they pay more than it's worth or they quote overpaid? Because generally speaking, that's something. It's like, let me ask you this question. You know me and my humor. Janet just loves me and my humor, my sarcasm. When do you discover you married the wrong person?
When it's too late.
Too late.
Some point in the future. Hopefully it's in more
Yeah.
than a day or two, right, Matt?
Exactly. And it's funny when people have different ways to interpret the tea leaves, is what I like to call it. And you'll have people that'll buy a home, for example, in 2023, and then the market takes a dump on them and they think they overpaid. It's like, well, you are comparing an apple to a cucumber. They're completely different markets. One thing I want to add quickly to Darlene's situation is when I I saw that you got hit by a semi when she said, well, if it doesn't appraise. And a lot of agents do. They get hit by the same metaphorical semi because they don't understand what happens if it doesn't appraise. So, but ask the question. Well, Louise, what do you what happens if the home doesn't appraise for what your purchase price is? Ask them what happens if the home doesn't appraise for what the contract price is. Get them to tell you what they perceive. Then you can explain. See where I'm going?
Yes. And not to go down that road too much, but everyone on this call probably already knows. If you don't, you should be able to clearly articulate. If that is the appraised value of the yardstick she's going to use to determine the home's quote worth in her words.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they using the assessed value from the property appraiser, which is about 70% of its value?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you guys know that. If you don't, you need to learn the differences in value, right? So anyway, Darlene, excellent job. We're doing really well. Ellie did good. Darlene, who has the pressure now going third?
Lori's gonna hit it out of the ballpark with Don.
Low pressure for you, Lori.
None. Hey, Lori, how will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure that I don't overpay?
Okay, Don. So, what does overpay mean to you?
Well, I'm a first-time home buyer and I'm qualified for that price range, but I want to make sure that I can get some assistance from the seller to help me pay my costs. Can you do that?
Great. I can absolutely help you and guide you through the purchase price. Let me ask you another question. When you say get me the best deal, what does best deal mean to you?
Well, I don't want to make the seller mad. But there's got to be some give and take. I guess I might have to pay them a little bit more, but I really need assistance in closing costs and, 2-3%.
Okay, that's something we can definitely try to structure into the deal. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to use deal into the transaction. Um, I just drew a blank. Market value. Blah.
Good. He used
So
deal. He used
in
deal.
my
You-
experience, the value of a home, the market value of a home is determined by what the buyer is willing to pay for the home. And each buyer is different. What you might want to pay for a home may be different from what another buyer might consider they want to pay for the home. I think what the most important thing is that it checks all of your boxes. Now, can I ask you, are you renting? Oh, no, you're a first-time home
Let me
buyer.
throw. I
Time.
gotta throw a
Sorry,
flag.
sorry.
It's okay. Don't apologize.
All
Stop
right.
apologizing to me. You don't owe me an apology. You didn't offend me in any way. Um, what I wanted to
Talking
do,
fast.
I wanted to get you put back on track. And he said something very powerful. He being Don. Don said something very powerful. He said, I need assist. I know there's some give and take. And I'm paraphrasing. He said, I would know I might have to pay more because we need some assistance. So right there, he just told you how to help him, and I would want to get clarity around that. So Don, if I'm understanding you correctly, what's most important to you is keeping as much money as possible in your pocket. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
So even if you had to pay a little more for the home, you'd be okay with that as long as you could keep the cash in your pocket when we go to closing.
Yeah. I know I'm not going to beat a seller up on price and then ask them to pay all my closing costs. It's one or the other.
Okay, gotcha. Very good. So ultimately, we want to structure this in a way where Don comes to the table with as little money as possible, even if we
Right.
have to pay a little bit more on the price.
Yeah, because I just don't have the extra cash for the
Okay,
closing. I'm qualified, but I don't have the cash.
perfect. So then here's what I would do, guys. I'd kind of circumvent the whole uh, best deal, overpay. He just told me. I'd say, great. So what would we like to offer so that you feel what type of offer would you feel comfortable making right now?
Yeah,
Knowing that. That's it. You're done.
yeah.
Lori, it was nice. You had a great start. All right, so far everyone's doing great. Good feedback. Matt, now, anybody here old enough to remember the dating game?
Yeah.
Okay, I know I'm going back in black and white rabbit ear TV days. However, there's a young lady on one side, three bachelors on the other side. Then they go question back and forth. Then the lady gets to choose which bachelor she's going to go on a date with. Does she have total information when she makes the decision?
Nope.
Does anyone ever have total information when they make the decision?
Nope.
And when
Nope.
does she realize if she made a good decision or not?
When
And
she
you go back-
selects him and his ugly ass walks out from behind the
When they
curtain.
come out from the curtain, yes.
Well, it's kind of funny. You go back and watch, it's probably somewhere in some archives in Nickelodeon or something. When the guy walks out, her expression will be priceless.
Yes.
Now, let's say she smiles and is happy, but somehow she sees the other two walk off stage and, oh my gosh, it's Thor and Brad Pitt.
Yep.
So here is the corundum, guys. And this is another path you can take. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. I might say, Matt, let me ask you, have you bought a home before?
A couple times.
Yeah. Did it end up being a good deal or do you felt like you overpaid?
No, I mean, I think it was all in all a good deal overall.
Okay. And have you ever made a purchase that turned out to be like you thought you were overpaid?
Yeah. There's been a few times in my life, but not with houses.
Can you think of one specific one? Yeah, sorry, I'll let you answer. Can you think of one specific one?
Yeah, like I bought a car and it just in the end I just felt it was a bad decision.
He just walked into my trap right there. Guess what the next question is? I wanted him to focus on one particular transaction. When did you realize it was you overpaid? It was a bad deal.
Well, it wasn't until 3 months down the road when I was replacing the transmission and the maintenance costs were ridiculous.
You see, they're trying to judge a bad overpay or get the best deal. They won't know until the future.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to what Matt said. When the market changed, now it's a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
one more thing, Matt. So when people what they want to hire the right agent, I want you to think about it. It's the dating game. They're going to interview, whether it be a seller or a buyer agent. How or when will they know if they made a good decision?
Mm-hmm.
After they made the decision.
Yep.
In one way, I want you to preempt that and let them know. Well, how do you know you're going to make you're going to make the good decision until after you made the decision? Because you're basing it on what they say. Has anyone ever overpromised and underdelivered, Matt?
99.99% of the time.
And here's what you do: is we think about your value proposition that we'll work on tomorrow. I know I'm lengthy here, so I'll shut up. You offer a series of guarantees, which most people won't do. Next.
Janet and Louise. Hey, Janet, how will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure I don't overpay?
I don't know if this would be Janet or Claude.
Janet,
You're muted, Janet.
you're on mute.
Hit the space key.
There you go.
Okay.
Sorry about that. My computer was acting up. So, Louise, what exactly are you thinking when you say get you the best deal?
I'm going to be very, very unhappy if I, reach closing day and then the next week I see a house sell down the street for less than I paid for this house.
Okay. So, I guess I'll use that analogy. Have you ever made the wrong decision? When did you realize you made that wrong decision? About
Your husband when she asked that. Don't look at your husband.
I had a great husband.
After the decision was made is when I realized I probably should have made a different one.
Yeah. So I could do a couple things that might help mediate some of this. First, before we make any kind of decision, we can do some comparables. But again, if there's some houses sold within the last 30 days that had not shown up on the comparables, you may find the same situation later. I had that happen once. That's one. I can flag overpriced.
Where are you going?
On that one?
No, I mean, where are you
I
going?
didn't ask a question. That's true.
Well, she's asking you how you're gonna get the best deal for her. Like what?
Well, I was trying to tell her there are ways. One is do some comparables. Two,
right, but how is she? I understand you're explaining. You're explaining this isn't normally how I do this, but what we need to understand is the yardstick, the measuring device in which she's determining the best deal. How will you know you've arrived at the best deal? When will you know you've arrived at the best deal?
Yeah.
Define overpaying. How will you know you've overpaid for this? That's the template for what this conversation needs to look like. Then you can start talking about the other stuff. But all the other stuff, guys, might not like it with Don's scenario. And when I helped Lori out with Don didn't give a crap about the appraisal. Don didn't give a crap about he wanted to ensure that his buyer's cost to close were covered. And that was pretty much it.
Okay. So is there anything else that would preclude you from making a selection today within these three houses that we looked at?
Well, I also don't want to overpay.
So here's the question I have for you guys. I don't want to. Now, this is what Louise said. I don't want to find out after I close that a house down the street sold for less. So what's going through your brain, guys? Here's what I would ask. How can we guarantee that doesn't happen?
Yeah. It's right. And don't be afraid to ask that question, guys, because nobody can make that guarantee.
Yeah,
You don't mind me using the marriage thing. You guys, okay, I'm a little bit sarcastic sometimes. Beyond the fuzzball.
you're fine.
I mean, when you make the choice to buy a house, you say no to the other houses. When you make a choice to marry someone, you're hopefully saying no to the other choices. What if you run into someone you didn't know before that fills more of the needs? They're taller, the better looking, etc. I mean, is that a risk of choice out there, right? So I just threw it back to Louise. Well, how can we make sure that doesn't happen? And guess what? There is not an answer for that, right, Matt?
Yeah. It happens to me every day. I'm on my third marriage, and each one of them has not been to Jennifer Aniston. So here I am.
This is recorded. You're going to be on number 4 if she gets a hold of this.
Sorry, honey. Yeah. But no, guys, it's there are certain things in real estate, and it's so funny when I hear other agents try to wiggle their way out of these conversations, or like kowtow, like try to get the client to feel good about what they're doing. I just had a client call me yesterday, $10,000 in seller concession. List price was $269,900. Original price was $259,900. So we raised the list price to add in the seller concession. And I explained to my seller client when we accepted the offer, now this is essentially a full price offer. However, your seller's cost to close are going to change marginally based on us grossing up the sales price. Well, that was the previous conversation. But then I get a phone call yesterday as to why the commission was $600 higher. And I said, do you remember the conversation we had about the seller's cost to close changing? Said commissions, unless otherwise denoted, are paid on gross sales price. But I stopped. I stopped and I just said, what would you like to see happen right now? What will make this a win? And she said, well, see if they will, the buyer's agent will allow the commission to be paid at the $259,900. And I said, that's fine. I will ask. Because I really, guys, and I'm, as a listing agent, I feel that's the way it should be.
Yep.
I will die on that hill. And if you won't, that's okay. I would question your ethics.
Now, why should you get paid a commission on the contribution?
On fake money. Right. So I didn't tell my client I was going to give her the money because I'd already planned to do it. I always do. But I use it at closing as like oh, and by the way, here you go. So anyway, I will.
Basket.
Yeah, exactly. So this all is applicable to this same kind of conversation. You do not kowtow or do not steer away from the hard conversations of, well, what if that one sells for less? It could sell for less, and it could sell for less the day after you move in. Are you gonna call me to sell the house if that happens?
When you get to who's next, Louise? I'm going to get them ready because I'm going to shut up here in a second.
Alex and Don are next.
Okay, here, guys. Matt and I, Louise and Don, we've been through a lot of transactions, right? It took us a while to get to the point where we're now freaking bulletproof. We've seen it all, heard it all. We spotted a mile away. Now, it's not like this. I don't know. There could be something new coming down the pipe, but I doubt it. What we want you to do is learn it much faster than we did. Mm-hmm. Because they may ask that question, Louise, I don't want to find out something, so they got a better buy after I buy. Listen, every time you go to the store, you have that risk. You go to buy bananas at Publix, they put them on sale, the next day. Oh my, they have it, buy one, get one free. So you have to recognize that, one, they're attempting to trap you, or second, they don't understand. You have to help them understand because they're using a yardstick that can never be used.
Yep. If their logic, last thing I'll say, if their logic was applicable, when you buy a new car, you would buy 10 of them. Just like when dog food goes on sale for my dogs, I got 3 dogs. When it goes on sale, I literally buy as many bags as my shed will hold. If their logic applies, that's what they do. So you'd buy 10 houses when you could get them at a certain price. So that's all. Anyway, move on.
Yeah. So your ex-wives didn't get your dogs. Okay, so
That's
who's
right.
up, Louise?
Alex and Don are next.
Okay.
Hey, Alex, last question. How will you give me the best deal on a house? Make sure that we don't overpay.
Hey Don, yeah. So first of all, what does best deal mean to you? Did you have a budget in mind?
No, not
Wait,
so
whoa, whoa,
much.
whoa, 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 whoa. Flag.
Sorry.
Two different things.
Yeah,
He mentioned
budget.
stay on one thing. You can't have two dangling participles at one time. Stay with one.
Got it.
What's a good
Don,
deal?
So Don, tell me what does best deal mean to you?
Well,
Good. Use
Did he say
the-
good? I looked too. I thought he said good, but it says best.
Oh,
here.
it says best. Okay, good.
Yeah.
But Don, did you say best? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But
I don't know. I don't
Alex,
remember.
Alex, the only reason we're saying that is because we've given the feedback a lot. I don't think I've talked to you a lot, Alex. We want to ensure that we're using their words. So if he said good, use good. If he said best, use best. We don't want to obfuscate the conversation.
Yeah,
Let's roll.
Right.
Got it.
Keep going.
So make sure I don't overpay.
All right. What do you mean by overpay? Did you have a bad experience in the past? And
No, stop. You're doing it again. Alex, what do you mean by overpay? Stop.
Right.
You're adding stuff on. Just say that. What do you mean by overpay?
Okay.
Well, Alex, when we bought this house, after we moved in, there were a lot of repairs that we didn't anticipate. Maybe the inspector, my agent, should have caught it. I don't know. So we definitely overpaid because we had a lot of repairs that we didn't see.
All right, yeah, I'm lost on that one.
No. I know we've got it scared you to death. You won't even talk now. Ask your normal question,
I'm
but
here to
just
learn.
ask
I'm here to
one.
learn.
Yeah. Let me give you some help.
Yeah.
Because I can understand how one would get lost when he says something, because it's very ambiguous what he's saying. Well, we had a bad home inspection. So what your brain right now is trying to do, and this is for everybody, but Alex, what your brain is trying to do right now is figure the Ray Dalio effect, which is, what is this about?
Right.
So because we're talking about price, but we're also talking about an inspection. So what is this about? So you have to ask that to Don, and you have to figure out a way to ask that quickly. Here's how I would do that, Don. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's not necessarily the dollar you paid for the property. It sounds like you feel like you bought a lemon.
Yep, exactly.
Man, I'm going to just ask you a question on that point. But I was tracking. I was confused there because he brought up inspection, but then he tied it together. He said, that's
Overpaid.
why I thought we overpaid,
Mm-hmm.
because he had all this money pit stuff that happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
But if you wouldn't have said that, my mind's tracking with Matt. All right, so is this about the inspection or is it about overpay? Keep
Right.
going, Matt.
Yeah. So Alex, does that make sense? So that's the kind of framework you guys want to use when you hear something that doesn't align with what we're talking about, like price, overpay, whatever. When they throw something in there like the inspection, your brain goes to, what is this about? So then just ask for clarity. So Don, if I'm understanding you correctly, and tell me if I got this wrong, it's not necessarily about what you pay for the property. It's the fact that after you moved in and had to pay for all the repairs, you feel like you bought a lemon because you had to pay out a bunch of money that you didn't anticipate.
Right on.
Okay. So I'm guessing our goal is to avoid that this time around.
Yes, please.
Okay. Gotcha.
So Alex, and everybody, what we're attempting to do is when you ask a question, when you add on a checklist, you could be diverting what they're really thinking. Like you said, I said to my wife, honey, what's up? Why are you so upset? Is it because I keep leaving my socks all over the floor? It may have nothing to do with my socks on the floor, or it might have something to do with it, but just say, why are you so upset? Now it becomes open. Does that make sense to you guys? So does that make sense, Alex?
Yep.
All right, we have time for another
Thank you,
one.
guys.
You bet.
Okay, Carlos, how will you get me the best deal on a home and make sure I don't overpay?
Louise, may I ask you where are you coming from with that question?
Where am I coming from? I'm coming from I've saved a lot of money to buy a first home and I'm about to buy a first home and I want to make sure I get the most bang for my buck.
So what I'm hearing is you wanted to make sure that you save the most amount of money in this transaction.
She say save?
Yeah.
No.
No, she didn't.
Oh,
I saved a lot of money to buy the first home.
oh God. Okay. So what I'm hearing
She wants
is,
the biggest bang for her buck. Sounds like another term that has to be defined.
and what do you mean exactly by more money?
No,
No,
bang for your
bang
buck.
for buck. How do we
Sorry,
My word.
right.
how do we establish that?
I want to make sure that I have this amount of money to spend, right? There are a lot of houses out there. I just want to make sure that I get the best house for the money I have to spend.
What does that look like?
And what does that look like to you, Louise?
Well, all of these boxes that I've given you, I just want to make sure they're all checked, or as many are checked as possible, so that when I spend this money and write that check, that we're going to be happy and live there happily ever after.
Sounds like a great plan.
So
Go ahead.
So I know we're going to go over time. It's okay. It's okay. So it's our show. What she's saying, here's the essence. Here's another analogy. You guys are probably tired of like getting making a marriage analogy. She's asking you, listen, I only have $10. I want to buy lottery tickets, but I want to make sure the ones I'm buying are going to win.
Mm.
Do you understand? Does that analogy make sense to you?
Yep, it checks out.
Yeah.
And so the issue is, okay, so Matt said, well, how does that look like to you? My question, the same question, just a different wording. Well, how do we ensure we do that? And I could use the analogy. What you're asking for is something that you won't know if it happened or not until after the fact. So how can we mitigate that now? Going back to the last role play about the inspection. Well, hey, we'll just get an inspection. That's not the right path. I said, on the last one, Don, where you had all these repairs and all these things, did you have a home inspection on it? Yes. Well, you can't go down that road because they had one. Well, what went wrong? Find out where it fell apart before you try to fix it. Matt?
Yeah, what were like in Don's analogy, what were the things you had to pay for after you moved in that we didn't anticipate? So look for those, we're only addressing their concerns, not ours. So find out what their concerns are, because our concerns are typically can price, right? We think most agents think very simplistically. Price, closing date, financing cash, and inspection period, right? We think within like a couple very finite boxes. But it's interesting how like there's been a couple role plays where I've intervened and with Dawn specifically, where Dawn's concerns haven't been any of those at all. It's been inspection and can I get my buyer's cost to close covered? So find out what their concerns are, and then if you don't have to speak about all these other things, you don't have to talk about them. You've just defined what their metric is, and it might not have anything to do with price.
Okay. Did you guys learn anything today? But what were your ahas? Keep the recording running. I think this was you guys had some of your best overall role plays, I think, were today on this one. So good job on that. So what did you learn? Louise, you have a question?
Well, before I share what I learned, Lori had her hand raised, so I'll go after Lori.
Oh yeah, Lori, what's your question?
Well, first, my aha is every day on here is an aha. There's so much information for me today. It was just, and I know Matt says all the time, let your first word be your breath. Just listening for the clues, because I get so It's so important for me to answer the question correctly and move through that process. And I'm not able to answer if I'm not listening for the clues. So thank you for that. Question. When we're talking about inspection, so that's where when I had that conversation, or we were having that conversation, I immediately go, oh no, a fire I have to put out. And I can't guarantee that an inspector is going to see everything, because I've actually had that happen on a transaction where my inspector missed quite a few things, and it was my recommendation. So how would you appropriately and professionally answer that question? I can't guarantee that that's not going to happen again.
Give
Well,
me 30 seconds, Matt. I know Thursday's your day.
Yeah, you set the expectation.
Yeah.
Just like I've set the expectation on any other topic here. It's no different. So it's been my experience. So I'm confident that if we hire a seasoned home inspector that has done this a million times, they're still going to miss something, regardless of, because we're just like realtors. The information in the MLS is only as good as the realtor that puts it in. Something will be missed. What are the things you're most concerned about that we might need to hyper focus on?
That's great.
So again, what I was going to say is this, is that you have to, like Matt said, set expectations. So when a buyer gets a home inspection, what do they think? Well, they're going to find everything. Well, what you have to do is you have to tie it to something they probably already can understand. Hey, listen, a home inspection is basically a general physical. So when you go into your doctor, they're going to do some major points, blood pressure, pulse, blah, 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 but it is not an MRI.
Yes.
So you tie it to something they have a frame of reference on. It will not guarantee. In fact, your home inspector, just like your general practitioner, they're specialists for roof, for pools, for HVAC, for sewer, and all the other things. You can have a specialist. There's levels. So please don't think your home inspector is an MRI. It's not. It's a visual, general, physical.
And if you guys, if your personality types are like mine, where you like comedy, or you like to be jovial about things, then I just say inspectors are like a 5-year-old at a toy store. Look at that, 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 look at that. They just point out the things that are readily observable. And if there's anything that you're concerned about, we may need to get a specialist here. So I use that all the time. Home inspectors are like a 5-year-old at a toy store. They're just going to point out everything that you can already see.
Just to tie it together, yesterday I talked about the power of three. All my presentation, I have three things, every category. Home inspectors are going to find three things. We have as-is contracts, but Matt doesn't use those. He uses what we call a FAR contract. Here's what the inspector is going to find. Things that are covered by the contract. And it's right in there, black and white. Things that are not specifically covered by the contract. It's in there, black and white. And they're going to find gray areas. They're not structural. They're cosmetic, fog windows, the pocket door doesn't latch right. Generally a handyman stuff for like $200. So just be ready. There's three categories they're going to find. Just like concrete. It's gray, it's heavy, and it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, Debbie.
I didn't have a question. You just asked in the beginning, what did I
Sure.
learn? But it's the same thing I learn every day, is to use their exact words and to define the terms. And also, I just love all the analogies both of you use. So that's very helpful to me. I'm just trying to.
We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. I have one more, and we'll close off. And Matt can say the final good night. Good night, John Boy. All right, so here we go. Anybody here a pilot? Anybody fly planes? Anybody?
On TV, I do.
So I've been a pilot for 40 years, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and a lot of times I'm going to watch, airline disaster ones, control. Here's my point. When you're learning how to fly, there's communication on the radio that when you're first there, it's like there's so much happening. You don't know. It's so quick. It's so abbreviated, blah, blah, blah. But the more you fly, the more hours you log, you can hear things. And what you said a little bit ago about listening. It happens over time. What we're trying to do is accelerate that, but the only way it happens is exposure. So the more you fly, the more you understand. And then, of course, I'm listening to control towers that going into the JFK or LaGuardia, and you've got professional, I mean, super busy. And you know what? It's amazing after time you can pick this stuff up, but it does take time. Give yourself some grace. How about that for fuzzball?
Beautiful. It's just like when you play an instrument. Because if you listen to like Metallica, for example, and if you're if you don't play an instrument, when you listen to Metallica, you think that the drummer is just going ham. Like you think he's beating the hell out of everything that's in sight.
Yeah.
But then when you're a drummer and you listen to Metallica, you realize that he's just sitting back there, just going through the paces, because you know how to pick the things out. You know exactly what that instrument is doing. So having more of these conversations will expose you to what is this about? You'll be able to pick it out a lot faster. Every time you have a new conversation, you'll say, because you might hear price, but that's not what it's about. It's about, I had a bad inspection and I had to pay a lot after closing. Has nothing to do with price. So
Thanks for being on tomorrow. We're going to work on value proposition.
Danny,
you guys,
Danny, sorry,
Anika.
before you just, I know. Can you just repeat the last home inspection you gave? You said cover in contract and not specific the gray area. What was the third one?
Oh, the 3 things about the home inspection, Denny.
The home inspector is going to find, they're expecting it to come back clean, right? No, it's 45 pages of like the toy store, right? I want that, I want that, I want that. The home inspector is going to find 3 things, Anita, when they do your home inspection. You ready?
Yeah.
Things that are covered by the contract. You know, for example, something structural, electrical, heating, cooling, blah, blah, blah. It's all in our contract. And I'll say that. The home inspector is going to itemize things that need repair that are outside the contract. Fogged windows, cracked tiles, torn screens, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to list a bunch of things that are neither, we call the gray area. Handyman issues that can be taken care of for a couple $100. So do you have any questions on it? So I prepared you, and when it comes in, sure enough, Matt, it's those 3 things will be in there.
Yep.
Simple. You make it simple. And you mothers know this. When your child cries, you hear it. Everybody knows this. When you hear your name, like Anita, just like stop me from logging off. You know your name out of a crowd. I was out, go back, you know, when my daughter was younger, we were watching when it first came out, Dancing with Wolves. You guys weren't even born yet. Yes, it was color, wasn't black and white. And we heard very faintly in the theater, Matt, well, Mr. Grimes, please come to the ticket booth. I'm sure, I looked at my wife and said, did you hear that? Anyway, we walked out there and there's a sheriff standing there and said, well, we had a call from your babysitter that your daughter quit breathing. Now, again, talking about basically giving a message that should have some context to it. But anyway, it was fine. It was kind of like, it was fine. But the issue was I'm sitting there watching the movie and the thing was so faint. I'm probably the only one in my wife that heard that because it was my name. You will get that way in your conversations.
A quick question before you go about the recon tomorrow. Is it the same link
Yes.
that I
Same
used
link.
today? Because I don't have any links for Friday.
Same link. Yep. Susan, did you have anything in closing really quick? Oh,
You're muted.
hold on. No,
Muted.
she's not muted. Her sound is going somewhere else. Can you fix it real quick? No. All right. Well, hey, come back tomorrow, figure out your sound and we'll start with you.
All right, guys, love you. Mean it.
Nah, we don't have you, honey. We'll save it for tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. See you guys.
All right, John Boy.
Oh, I can't count.